Do we know any narcissist jokes? No, I just like told you all my relationship problems.
That's a great place to start right there. That's it. Amazing. Welcome to Let's Pick This Up Next Week. I'm Dee.
And I'm DJ. We're two therapists who like to dive deep into everything from mental health to politics, voting, and whatever else is going on in the world.
We're here to have real conversations about life, the issues that matter, and how it all affects us. Because let's face it, there's always something more to talk about.
Exactly. So grab your coffee, settle in, and join us as we break it all down.
We'll catch you up on the big stuff, the personal stuff, and the things you didn't even know that you needed to think about.
And when we run out of time,
we'll pick this up next week. Hello and happy whatever day you're watching this on. Hi, DJ. How's it going?
Hey, Dee. Going all right. What is today? We're on Wednesday.
Yes, it is Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's Wednesday for us.
You still have light outside your house, which I'm very jealous of.
I do. It is. What time is it? Yeah, it's not 5 o'clock yet. You know, we're past the 4:30 dark. So.
True. Well, it's 7:45 here. So there's that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I have a topic that's been on my mind. It comes and goes in waves about every 4 years, I think, at this point. The topic really crosses my mind. So I want to talk about why everyone is an expert on narcissism at the moment. Like, you can't scroll Instagram, you can't scroll TikTok, and I've taken a huge TikTok break, like, without seeing posts about like how to spot a narcissist. I had a client bring to session the other day. She's like, I Googled what a narcissist is, and I want to talk about my boyfriend. And I'm like, okay, like, let's talk about it. So we're surrounded by these buzzwords. What you think? Are we overusing it, underutilizing it? What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the things that is overutilized. I think that social media, you definitely see everybody's exes has narcissistic personality disorder, right? Or
only I
shorthand,
can truly say that,
right? Or shorthand, there is a narcissist, and I do think that, you know, a lot of the armchair therapists out there or psychiatrists, you know, with the diagnosing, are quick to see a behavior and to label it as a narcissist.
Absolutely. Yes. Because narcissism, it is a real personality disorder.
Yeah.
But the way that we talk about it online and in general, like, just feels about something else entirely. It gets thrown about in relationships, when people talk therapy speak, in politics, people in power in general, it talks about a lot. So what I want to talk about today is talking about, like, what is narcissism? How does it develop? Are we using it in a helpful way, or are we using it to avoid a deeper conversation about for an accountability? So,
good point.
Why do you think people are so obsessed with calling other people narcissists?
That's such a good question. I think that you know, people, if they feel like they are harmed, I think they're looking for maybe an easy explanation or a way to, you know, understand and give accountability to another person. So I think like that's why it's happened a lot when people are talking about their exes and stuff. It's interesting, Dee, because this is something I do talk a lot about in my therapy sessions, because people that I've been working with for a long time know that I am not somebody who easily throws around that person is a narcissist. You know, and I do know that some therapists will, like, oh, your ex sounds like a narcissist, and then just do a lot of, like, I think moving blame to that person, which I don't think is helpful to the client anyways. I think there is some understanding, but then also, like, what happened, you know, what is it in your control in that relationship to fix it? But I was like, what was my first point? My first point is that I don't use it lightly. It's not something I just throw around. So like, when I do see it, and I do want to provide a little bit of psychoeducation, like, I think that the people who've worked with me for a long time know that, like, I'm not just lightly saying, like, that guy's a narcissist. Like, the more and more I hear, it sounds like that person meets the criteria for narcissistic personality disorder.
Well, and how you said it there too is really interesting. And I want to kind of point that out for listeners as well. It's like, you'll hear us differentiate between, like, the term narcissist or like narcissistic traits or narcissism is separate than narcissistic personality disorder or NPD. I'm going to say NPD because narcissistic personality disorder is a lot of syllables.
It is. Yeah.
But it's different. Like, there's criteria.
Right. Right. And I think that, like, when people are throwing around just like that person's a narcissist, though, like, I think that the weight that they're carrying with the word isn't like, oh, that's so narcissistic, which I think is a little bit different. I feel like when you call someone a narcissist, it is still different from the personality disorder. But I think that, like, again, you're using a word that you may not have all the understanding of, like, what it actually means to be a narcissist.
Exactly. And I was looking in my drawer because I'm like, it's not
You have a
here. It's on the
narcissist in your
bookshelf.
drawer? Do you have a little pint-sized,
It's like an elf
drawer-sized
on the shelf.
narcissist? Like,
No,
here.
I'm looking over there. I'm trying to like Matilda summon my pocket DSM.
I have pocket DSM.
You
Actually,
do? Okay,
well,
hold please. I'm gonna grab
I
mine.
have a desk reference DSM that's on my desk. Can you believe it?
I too have.
Is
Mine's
yours?
the DSM-5, not the TR. I've not upgraded to
Well,
the.
mine's not the TR either. Is it the desk reference? Is yours smaller
is.
than mine or the same size? Where did
That's
you
what
get
she
yours?
said. Mine might be a little bigger than yours.
Nice. Oh, look at this. Is Narcissistic Personality Disorder is on page 327.
327. I flipped to 323. Yes, it is.
Oh, we have the same. Look at
We
that.
have the same.
That's
so
pretty
weird. It's
great.
almost like we're both practicing counselor.
That's so nice. Do you
So
want to
let's
read
talk
the
a bit about
criteria?
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first off, the thing that everybody misses about personality disorders, and I will use a personal anecdote because there is another personality disorder that I swore I had in grad school. I remember telling one of actually your favorite professor that I'm like, I think I have obsessive compulsive personality disorder. It was Dr. Holmes. I wasn't going to say that.
In case
like,
she's
I think
listening. Hi, Dr. Holmes.
Yes.
She's not, that's not her name anymore. She's married. But go ahead. I digress.
You do. Hi, Dr. Holmes. Anywho, so I remember saying I have obsessive compulsive personality disorder, which is different than obsessive compulsive disorder. And she, in the nicest way, because she was just a very, very kind person.
She really was, yeah.
Yeah, says like you have to read the beginning of the chapter. Like you can't just skip to the checklist because to be diagnosed with a personality disorder, any of them, any of the, is there 9 or 10? 10. Any of the 10, you have to check the box of meeting a general personality disorder first, which includes things such as an enduring pattern of inner experience and behavior that deviates markedly from the expectations of an individual's culture. It's manifested in 2 or more ways, including cognition, affect, interpersonal functioning, and impulse control. This pattern is inflexible and pervasive across a broad range of personal and social situations, leads to clinically significant distress or impairment, stable and of long duration, onset is at least adolescence or early adulthood, and it's not better explained by another mental disorder or drugs.
Yeah.
So, taking all of that first, then going back to
what's
page
interesting
327
about that is, and I have made and I've done some research about borderline personality disorder in certain cultures because you can see traits of that. And I just had a discussion actually about it the other day about like, then it's not a personality disorder because it's how it is in that culture.
It's in the culture.
I wasn't even thinking about the criteria for general personality disorder, but I already talked too much that I forgot what my original point was. Go ahead. Keep going.
You really liked that it's an enduring pattern, markedly deviates from the expectations of a person's culture.
Oh, culture. Remember how we've talked about like substance abuse as a culture, trauma as a culture?
Yes.
So it's interesting though, because let's say that I'm way off topic because I'm now at BPD, because we see that a lot with trauma.
Yeah. Highly diagnosed in women more so than men.
Right. Yeah. So like if you're, generational trauma, so it's, passed down like your grandma, your mom, all of that, then if trauma is a culture and we see that generational trauma and many of the females who are diagnosed with BPD, is it really? If that's a culture.
My soapbox on BPD is it's the new term for hysteria.
Oh geez. Yeah. It can be.
I can't even go down that lane today. We'll cover that a different day.
Another day we'll talk about BPD, and then we can talk about how it's misdiagnosed a lot of time as bipolar as well.
All the time. Yep.
Yeah.
Or autism. Like people who are autistic often have anyway.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, another episode. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. And welcome to our new subscribers and viewers. It's so great to see you here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it really is. We had our last episode we were talking about, like, we had just a huge spike in viewership, especially on YouTube. So it's really nice to see that people are
absolutely.
engaging, and we appreciate the people who are reaching out to us. And yeah, we hope that everyone stays tuned. Stays tuned. Go ahead.
Stays tuned. And Dr. DJ will respond to your comment should you want to leave a comment.
That's
So NPD, it differs from, it's not just self-centered behavior, right? So the
mm,
first criteria, and someone has to meet at least 5 of these, but can meet more, include a grandiose sense of self-importance.
mhm,
So we see that not in clinical ways and not in clinical ways, right? Like this person just wants to be seen as superior and better
mhm,
than, more so than is actually warranted.
right.
This person may also be preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited power, success, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love.
Mhm,
A person with NPD may also believe that they are special and unique and can only be understood by or should only associate with other special or high status people or institutions.
yeah.
Oof, that was a sigh.
I mean, I think that we both have someone in mind who are like, check, 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 right?
And I think we've got a few. This person, again, another criteria, requires excessive admiration.
Yeah. Like maybe hats and like, that kind of stuff.
A cult, yeah,
Yeah.
usually.
Like, hats that have like 4 letters on it.
This person may also have a sense of entitlement, like an unreasonable expectation of like favorable and preferential treatment. This person may also be interpersonally exploitative, whatever,
Personally
taking
exploitative.
advantage of others.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes. Uh-huh.
takes advantage of others. I can't pronounce words today. It's been a long day.
Right.
This person is lacking of empathy and may be
Mhm,
unwilling to recognize or identify with feelings and needs of others, which
mhm,
that can slowly start to move more towards like the antisocial personality disorder when we're thinking about the Venn diagram of cluster A stuff.
mhm. Yeah.
This person is often envious of others and believes that others are envious of them.
Mhm.
And this person may also show arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes.
Haughty is a great word.
Haughty is great. It's
It's pretty awesome.
it's the opposite of demure. Very not demure. So,
Haughty.
and I hesitated at first to even read those because I don't want people thinking of them as that checklist. I mean, like you mentioned, of course, like the DSM is a little bit of a checklist, but there's many things. The desk reference for anyone interested literally just lists. It doesn't give a satisfying flip sound though. No.
Uh,
Um.
no?
Yeah, it's all right. Literally just lists the criteria. The actual DSM, the one that's like giant, talks a lot more about this. Talks a lot more about differential diagnosis and defines
Right.
much further than this little checklist does to talk
Right.
about the prevalence, the diagnostic course, all that kind of good
Mhm.
stuff. So,
Yeah.
anywho,
And I always like to criteria is great, but I always like to I've always said that, and no, I'm a little bit autistic, but I diagnose by patterns rather than criteria. So I'll see the
yeah.
pattern first, and then I'll think of the criteria, and like, yeah, it's all there. But
Mhm.
I mean, it's helpful to give an understanding. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's helpful too to know the origin, right? Because it's not fair to vilify someone simply because they have a
Right.
diagnosis.
Right.
So, like, we know that NPD comes from usually childhood trauma,
Mhm.
attachment issues, just early issues when like developing their personality.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know, people who have NPD often actually have a very fragile sense of self-esteem and self-worth and are very reliant on others to provide that external, whatever, external anything.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it shatters them. Like they fear
Right.
rejection, they fear failure, they need that external validation.
Right. And I think like what you're talking about, because a lot of times people will think of narcissism too and vanity as the same thing, right? And those are different things. And it can be vanity can be part of a person's behavior who has narcissistic personality disorder. But like I think they're differentiated between I've heard differentiation and a lot of the stuff that is differentiated isn't in the DSM. I always have opinions about it because I'm like, who made that up? It's not in the DSM. But But people who have the fragile self-esteem, who it comes from a place of insecurity versus like you said, it could come from trauma, but it also could come from a kid who was given everything and told that they're like, what is Willy Wonka? I always have old people references. Did you see the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate
Yeah.
Factory? Okay.
The I Want It Now.
Yeah, that kid that is
Veruca
like,
Salt?
yeah,
No.
right? Like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same as the band.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
right, like a kid who might be told, like, you are the best everything, you are the apple of my eye, everyone just wants to be like you, like all that kind of stuff. That person could grow up to have narcissistic personality disorder without the insecure part. They will rely on a bunch of external validation because they're used to getting it, not used to, expect to get it. And so, like, if someone doesn't give it to them, it's almost like a how dare you, right? Do
Yeah.
you know who I am?
Absolutely. Because sometimes, I mean, again, taking it back to like childhood, because we get that's a lot of our neuroses come from childhood.
Right.
Unfortunately, sorry, parents out there. But it comes from like that emotional neglect to instead, because it does neglect a child's emotions to instead say, you're the best at everything. And,
Right.
no one could ever be as amazing as you are. And, that neglects the true emotions and the emotional complexity of that child. And so, yeah, often they overcompensate. They develop these feelings of superiority. They have defensive grandiosity. Just they feel that inconsistent or conditional love. And so they've programmed themselves that like, this is what their personality and persona should look like.
Exactly. And then like what you said about, they have a feeling of, superiority, but also the only way that that's validated, right, is if they seek out friends or align themselves with other people who they perceive as having that superiority as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. So why do you think like narcissist has become like the go-to label for bad partners, jerks, emotionally immature people? Why do you think that that's like what we default to?
Yeah, that's a good question over like other things, over other personality disorders. Or I feel like maybe if it's because of someone, they're in a relationship with someone again and wow, I know why. I have a belief, right? I have a belief that a lot of problems that happen, in human behavior among humans come from the negative self-belief of I'm not blank enough. I'm not enough, right? And so if people
That
have
self-worth.
right, if people have that belief and then someone treats them badly, it's easier to make yourself feel better if you can be like, well, the reason they treated me like that is because they're a narcissist, and then that will help with that negative self-belief of not being enough.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's really salient. That was a good light bulb.
Yeah.
That was a good light bulb moment.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that one's an easier one to like understand and resonate with versus like, oh my God, they're so histrionic. It's not going to do the same thing.
Do people still say that's so histrionic? Like I haven't heard that term outside.
People say that? No.
Do people even know what that is anymore?
No, I don't think so. But did I tell you it's my favorite personality disorder? Can I say that on air?
I mean, sure.
Yeah.
I like histrionic.
As a therapist, it's my favorite to watch because it's so dramatic. I feel like I'm watching like a soap opera, like live and right in front of my face. So it's just kind of fun.
I mean, antisocial is my favorite. I know I've talked about that before, but yeah, because I find it really engaging to work with it. I think that like my therapeutic approach tends to work well with people who have ASPD.
Right. Well, I mean, and your professional experience has been with a large amount of that population.
Yes. Yeah. Many, some would probably also meet narcissistic personality disorder, but
yeah,
it's hard to diagnose because, again, we think about culture. I don't often diagnose it in the correctional system because the culture of being incarcerated
right. Like if you're
so dependent on it.
Right. Yeah. And if you're somebody who's been, repeatedly incarcerated or has been institutionalized, versus like someone right away. How do you, we have to have a whole series on personality disorders because like,
God.
There's no way to talk about one without talking about the other.
This is true.
But also like mood disorders because because also what you see in that population, we're way far away from narcissism for a second, probably not the last time. But what you also see is schizoaffective disorder, right? And people who are incarcerated. Like, I think antisocial or schizoaffective are like the two top, right?
Yeah, once you take out all like the substance use disorders, because I'd still say, yeah. And substance use, I mean, in the criteria for pretty much every disorder, they'll say is not caused by a medical issue or drugs.
Right.
Those will always be the two rule outs. If someone is taking something that causes hallucinations, you cannot ethically diagnose them with a diagnosed like schizophrenia, unless you can see that there's a marked course outside of intoxication and withdrawal.
Yeah, exactly. I worked at a mental health urgent care, and a lot of times we'd have people come there instead of going to a hospital if they were in a mental health crisis.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people would come right under the influence of drugs. And that was one of the things that I had to remind some other therapists was like, you can't, this person is on meth. You can't diagnose them with schizophrenia because we're not going to have a clear picture. And at least with meth, we would, like in the morning, we would be like, you are not the same person.
Yeah. You can see when someone's,
Yeah. So, but that's the thing is like, we would have to assess and diagnose. And I would like, be careful you're not diagnosing them with something with psychosis. You can put maybe some rule outs, right? Like, it could be this, but yeah, because you do see a lot of, especially with meth, you see a lot of psychosis that happens when you're under the influence of that.
Yeah. I don't know, and forgive my ignorance, if a lot of other professions use like the term rule out. So just to define is like, we use rule out when it's like, yeah, I'm definitely seeing this. I'm maybe seeing some of these things. So like telling either myself or whoever is the next, practitioner, keep looking for these traits. Like this is, we're getting rumblings of these things over here.
Right.
Yeah.
We're way off of narcissism, and I don't remember how we got there, but do we want to, I mean, ADHD.
But okay, so question though. So we talked about why it's easy to label people as narcissists. And I know we've spent a lot of time with talking about politics lately, but I think it's just what's happening in the zeitgeist is the political world is ruling the world in a lot of ways. So it's hard to separate and be completely outside of that. But we often talk about political like as a society, we talk about political figures like Trump and like Elon Musk, and they get labeled as narcissists. And narcissists actually have a propensity for leadership roles. Like there's studies that show that people who seek leadership have narcissistic traits and some cross that threshold. There's like a perfect balance of like the amount of leadership skills and narcissism, but then at a certain point, too much narcissism is like awful. But anywho.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting that you listed those two because Trump, I mean, I have said, and I said in the last episode, the psychological abuse that I think is happening from him, like, I mean, that guy is textbook narcissistic personality disorder. Like when you're going through the criteria, I'm like, check, right? That's Trump, but interesting because Elon Musk is known for being autistic. And so when you also said that people with narcissistic personality disorder tend toward leadership, there are like some of the more, I hate to say it, Dee, I'm going to say it, some of the more higher functioning people with
low need,
right, with autism also seek out leadership roles. So you can see where a lot of times like, and I don't know that like Elon Musk doesn't have some narcissistic traits, but that wouldn't be the first thing that pops to my mind for him.
It's true.
But he is one of the richest men in the country, or the richest man in the country. I know it like goes back and forth. And like, of course, like if you see Trump and at the inauguration and having all the rich, young, cool tech guys and him being like, look at these guys, look at these rich guys. They also lost their homes too, these poor rich guys. Look at these rich guys. They like me and they're my friends.
100%. Yeah. I mean, that's very much like a trait of narcissistic personality disorder.
Right.
I mean, there's definitely like when we think about like grandiosity, right? He's got that exaggerated sense of self-importance, thinking that he alone can fix it. It's a need for admiration, seeking constant praise and adoration from supporters. a lack of
The MAGA,
empathy.
all the MAGA gear. Like, what other
Yeah.
president can you think of in the history of, like, I know your life is shorter than mine, but like, I can't think of.
Hey, I did just have a birthday.
You did. I
I
know. I
know.
can't. We were talking about how long we've known each other. I can't believe it.
Wild.
But like, I can't think of another president. Like, you didn't see Joe Biden with Biden hats and Biden. I mean, I think maybe there was, and we have had the like "I'm with her"
Yeah.
T-shirts, but it's a little bit different than the whole like MAGA. I'm just running through.
Yeah.
Everything versus like "I'm with her." I feel like it's a little bit different. Maybe that's my bias, but I don't think so.
It's like a little biased, but I think, like, to me, and someone had to point it out to me because I very much felt the same way, that I'm like, Trump flags aren't like interior decorations. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, you see these signs that say, your political figure, you see them in the months leading up to election, and people sometimes leave them up for a couple weeks after, whatever. And then that's kind of it. But like, someone said to me, and I thought it was interesting. He said, well, a lot of the people who are voting for him, this is a new arena to step into to understand or get involved in politics. So they're not as familiar with the etiquette of like, no, this isn't normal. It's not normal to like, have a shirt where like Jesus is looking over your presidential candidate. That's not normal. That's kind of outside the political etiquette, which. So that's the only way I can right size that in my brain.
Yeah. Because I mean, like having like a Biden Harris T-shirt is, I think, a little bit different than a whole movement. Like MAGA feels like a movement.
Yeah. So in psychology, we have this thing called the Goldwater rule, right? Which basically states that it was by the American Psychiatric Association. So they referred specifically to psychiatrists, but they basically said that psychiatrists should not diagnose public figures without personally evaluating them. But many also say we live in a world where we get so much data on a person and collect so much that like it's it's up to debate because the Goldwater rule came out in 1973. We certainly did not have as much access to information about people as we do today.
Yeah, that's the year I was born, 1973.
Oh my God, you're as old as the Goldwater rule.
I know. And I don't remember hearing that term. That's new to me.
I do remember that, but it was mostly because in our diagnosis class, I couldn't diagnose someone because I had no idea who they were. It was like a pop culture figure. And so instead of writing what I thought their diagnosis would be, I said, this is a clear violation of the Goldwater rule.
Nice.
Because I didn't know who they were. Got full credit. So
really good.
Yeah. It was a person from like Real Housewives. And I'm like, I'm not downplaying Real Housewives because I also watch garbage television. I just didn't watch that genre of garbage television.
Right. Yeah, I don't know any of them either. I know the Teen Moms from Teen Mom 2.
Nice. So, food for thought here. Devil's advocate, let's say.
Yeah.
So, some people argue that Donald Trump's traits more align with like what's called the dark triad of personality traits. So that's narcissism, Machiavellianism. That is Tyler's favorite word of all time. I texted him before.
Machiavellianism? Why don't I know this one?
Oh my God. Like I had to freaking Google it the first time he told me, you should Google it because I am not knowledgeable. But anyway, I literally texted before and I was like, hey, we're going to talk about your favorite term, Machiavellianism. And he responds in all caps because I spelled it wrong. And I'm like, no one's going to see my spelling. It's a podcast, my love.
Right.
Calm down.
Well, we'll see what the captions do with it.
Yeah. But anyway, narcissism, Machiavellianism, which is like being cunning in a political sense. Don't come for me in the comments if I mess that up. Sorry.
Okay.
And psychopathy, more so than clinical NPD. Some people would say that he's got more of the dark triad personality traits as opposed to the personality disorder. Thought.
What do you think? Yeah, we'll have to hear what people think about it.
I'm curious. Yeah. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are because it's interesting. Some others would state that his behavior is more strategic than pathological. So like use of the media machine in a lot of ways, like he's genius the way that he uses like when we talk about like the political magic trick, like when you're a magician, you're doing something you want people to see while the real action's going right outside of you. It's a distraction. Right. In that sense, politicians in general are really great at it. And people who are really, really great are the people who have good public reputations or, avoid seeing like the nitty gritties of stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, some people would just say that he is very strategic. Do you think he's more strategic, or do you think this is more of like an internal drive for him?
I think it's an internal drive. I think that
Mm-hmm.
like, like for the last election for the 2020, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about, I really wanted to be president of the United States of America, and I'm really sad that I didn't get to do for my country. I think
Mm-hmm.
it was really like, I just needed to win. And
Mm-hmm.
and because I didn't win, then like I'm gonna like cause all this upheaval, and it doesn't matter because then there's my loyal followers, right? The whole
Mm-hmm.
January 6th thing, right? I think that just is another example of like, he just didn't win. It was like that's what it's about. Not what the job is and not wanting
Yeah.
to care about the country. I don't think that's true.
For sure. Yeah, I think it is a bit more about that personal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do think we use the term narcissism when it comes to politics. We use it
Mm-hmm.
selectively. Like, I think the vast majority of politicians have narcissistic traits,
Well,
not
yeah.
necessarily NPD, but a lot, you
I
have to have a
mean,
little bit of narcissism to go towards that, to want that.
right, right. That's what I was gonna say. And to like, be willing to like be out there and chosen and stuff.
Yeah. It's the unfortunate downside that sometimes because we have these political leaders who are narcissistic, whether or not they meet the diagnostic threshold, it
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately causes stigma because not every person with NPD is intentionally manipulative. Like they're
Right,
not intentionally abusive to
right,
others.
right, right. Yeah, I believe that's right. And I think that like a lot of times people do, look at that and like with any personality disorder and think that like, manipulation or that kind of stuff. And I think that manipulation is probably also overused, and that like, is someone really calculating it, or is it because they're doing the best they can do, and they don't know any other way.
Yeah. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think, and I'll use Trump as the example because he's the most pressing person in this conversation, do you think that labeling Trump a narcissist changes the way that we hold him accountable for his behaviors?
Is that a question for me or a question for our audience?
I mean, it could be any. I'll start
Yeah.
with you since you're here.
Do I think that labeling that decreases his accountability? Is that what you said?
Yeah, does it change the way that we hold him accountable?
I mean, I don't think for me personally that it changes the
Hmm.
way. I think for me, what it does is give an understanding of like why people follow him. I think for me, that's what it does is like, I'm not going to be automatically mad at you because you are a Donald Trump follower. And I know that we're like, what's the word? Alienating people who follow Trump from our podcast. I'm sure we don't.
Sure.
Not going to have a lot of those listeners, but I do think that it allows me to hold some space for somebody who
Yeah.
who is a Donald Trump supporter. And it allows me to hold space to be like, I don't think that you're a bad person. I don't think that you automatically believe everything that he's doing or want all of that. I believe that like you were led to believe that he is the best person for the job, and you were led to believe that he cares about you. And I don't think either of those are true. Yeah.
Yep. And I mean, you hit it on. I can't remember if you said it on air or another time we were just chatting, but talking about that, like, it's pretty classic narcissism to get people to follow you and endorse you.
Mm-hmm.
And then, once you're in, you're in. And like that goes to, like you said, of like people kind of falling for it, which is unfortunate. Nobody wants to feel like they've fallen for something.
Right.
But also, like, it gets to the idea of what's called the sunk cost fallacy, which is I've invested so much in this, I literally can't give up. That's why people who have been
Mm-hmm.
in relationships for decades that are no
Mm-hmm.
longer healthy say, well, I can't
Mm-hmm.
give this up. We have all of this. But it's like, that's the sunk cost fallacy. Like, you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to save a sunken ship here.
Right.
Same idea of like a person who has gone through so much to say, no, this is my guy. We have similar values. This is a person who wants me to have a better life and have the American dream.
Right.
Once you start getting into that at a certain point, it's so much harder to step back out. Like,
Right. Yeah.
there's studies on this that are fascinating. One of them was like talking about how sororities and fraternities that have more rigorous hazing, people are more likely to stay in them because they had all of this investment to get into it. So then it's very hard to then walk away because they're like, well, I must have wanted this. I spent a lot of time, a lot of energy. I align with this thing now. And so unfortunately, I think that's how a lot of people are, is they've chosen a way to align. And it happens on all sides of the political spectrum. And things just dig it down deeper instead of helping to trying to find that middle ground.
Yeah, good point.
Which, hard to say there's middle ground anymore, but what the heck? We'll leave it on a positive note this Wednesday.
That's right. We're gonna hold out hope for middle ground.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say holding space, and this is just a trivia tidbit that I'm sure people have heard who are Wicked fans. That Ariana Grande and I can't remember her name. Cynthia, so bad I don't remember her name, but the two main actresses for Wicked, they didn't know what holding space was. So there was a whole movement that happened from people making jokes about holding space because they didn't know what it was.
Can I tell you, I don't like musicals, and so I don't think I can watch Wicked.
Really? I used to hate musicals. I can watch them better on caption, but I even watched that one at the theater.
Yeah, I need captions to hear for sure.
Yeah.
It's auditory processing disorder there.
Me too.
All right, well, DJ, I appreciate you holding the space for us and having this conversation. And good times. Please leave us some comments. Let us know what you think. What did we get right? What did we get wrong?
What do you want to hear about? Yeah. What else do they want to hear about?
Which of the 10 million strands did we go down today that you'd like us to follow for the next one?
Exactly. All right.
So, well, thank you all so very much for taking the time and spending your time with us, and we will catch y'all later. See ya.
Bye.